With the new apocalyptic subclasses Unearthed Arcana, it's looking very much like the Dungeons & Dragons team is returning to the Dark Sun setting, a post-apocalyptic desert setting that first appeared in 2nd edition. I don't have a ton of knowledge about this setting itself, which is why I didn't mention it in my previous video about the Defiled Sorcery Sorcerer. But regardless, it is exciting to me to see the team revisiting old settings that a lot of newer players just don't have any experience with. This is something I'm actually pretty curious about though. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about returning to Dark Sun. I know there are some themes in the setting that are typically considered controversial, so I would like to hear from you whether or not you have a ton of experience with the setting, and let me know what you think. With all that being said though, in this video I wanted to go over the Sorcerer-King Patron for the Warlock, which is another new subclass in this UA. Sorcerer Kings are a part of Dark Sun lore, which is a bit unfortunate since it's kind of a confusing name given that sorcerers are a class in 5th edition, but I don't think that's that big of a deal. Anyway, there's some very cool ideas in here, so let's dive in. Just like we always do whenever we see a new subclass, we're going to begin by taking a look at the description. Your pack draws from the power of a monstrous tyrannical force akin to a demigod or an overwhelmingly powerful magic user. Through your pact, you herald this tyrant's interest into the world, channeling their influences and mind-bending psionic power. Sorcerer Kings are supposed to be these almost godlike ultimate power beings. In a world where typical arcane magic is shunned, they possess these incredible abilities and psionics that can be used to manipulate and influence others. This has all the makings of an incredibly cool subclass, so let's take a look. Before we do though, I am getting so close to 20,000 subscribers and I have some very exciting announcements planned for when I hit that milestone, so if you'd like to help me on that journey, I would sincerely appreciate it. Subscribing to the channel and clicking the like button while you're there helps way more than you probably realize, so thank you so much. The first feature we gain access to at level 3 is our Sorcerer King spells. At level 3, we get Command, Compel Duel, Hold Person, Mind Spike, and Wrathful Smite. At level 5, we get Fear and Sending, at level 7, we get Compulsion and Staggering Smite, and at level 9, we get Dominate Person and Synaptic Static. Overall, this is a very strong spell list. Getting access to the Smite spells in 2024 on its own is amazing, and Synaptic Static is just such an excellent spell. And then there's Command, Hold Person, Fear, Sending. This is just such a good list, I can't overstate that enough. The only spell that's a bit questionable from a power perspective is probably Compel Duel, but it's still very thematic and works with what the class theme is going for, so I'm not actually that upset about it, especially given the context of the rest of the list. The thing is though, that's not where it stops, because this feature also provides us with psionic casting. This makes it so that whenever we cast a spell from the Sorcerer King table, we can cast it without verbal components or material components, unless those material components are consumed by the spell or have a cost that is specified within the spell. I will say though that this is very good and extremely flavorful. In my games, I tend to have verbal components be these booming and commanding phrases that are extremely obvious and unmistakable, so this certainly helps in tables which play similarly. It's also nice to not have to deal with the awkward material component rules in the game. The one thing I will say though is that unless I am mistaken, none of the spells on the Sorcerer King table have material components with a cost or that are consumed in the casting of the spell. It's possible that I just missed something and someone let me know if I did, I'm sure you will. If I didn't miss anything though, then it's just one of those lines that sounds great, but it's not really doing anything. Now, if it let you cast Warlock spells in general with this buff, it gets a whole lot better. Next up at level 3, we get another feature, Tyrant's Herald. This gives us 2 sub-features, Intimidating Presence and Voice of Tyranny. Intimidating Presence provides us with proficiency with the Intimidation skill if we don't already have it, and then it goes ahead and gives us expertise in it as well. It's always nice to have these kinds of bonuses to a character, and it fits this subclass extremely well. One thing I'll note, and it's something I've mentioned before in previous UAs, I never like it when the design team repeats the name of something that already exists, but makes it do something completely different. Intimidating Presence gives our Sorcerer Kings expertise in intimidation. That's cool. But Intimidating Presence for barbarians is a bonus action to potentially give some creature within a 30-foot emanation the Frightened condition. Just purely at a design level, this bugs me. It's not consequential in any real meaningful way, especially since Intimidating Presence isn't an active feature, it's just a passive one that you always have, but regardless, I'd still hope they change it. The deep irony though is that there is another Sorcerer King subclass feature that we will get to shortly, and is actually almost identical to Barbarian's Intimidating Presence, and potentially could have justified the repeated name, but didn't get it. Anyway, like I said, this doesn't actually matter all that much. Our second benefit from Tyrant's Herald is Voice of Tyranny. This allows us to cast Command as a bonus action and without expending a spell slot. We can do this a number of times per long rest equal to our charisma modifier. This is extremely powerful for a multitude of reasons. Firstly, command is already an amazing spell, not to mention that it doesn't require concentration and is only first level. It's just so good. But to shift it from an action to a bonus action and not require a spell slot is just gravy. Shifting it to a bonus action preserves our main action to accomplish something else while still getting the battlefield control that command provides. You could command them to grovel, giving them the prone condition on their turn, and then depending on how the initiative order is looking, even be setting up your allies to get some melee attacks in at advantage. There's just so much you can do here. More importantly though, because it doesn't consume a spell slot, it means that we can still use our action to cast spells if we wanted to, whether it's a cantrip like Eldritch Blast, because we are still warlocks, but even any other spell that may require a spell slot, since as a reminder, the new rule for multiple spells on a same turn in 2024 is just that you can only cast one spell with a spell slot on a turn. Shifting command to a bonus action and not requiring a spell slot does wonders for the Sorcerer-King's action economy. It's nuts. Plus, on top of that, giving warlocks ways to cast leveled spells without burning through their precious few spell slots is just so valuable. This is an incredibly strong feature that opens up so much potential for not just the warlock player, but the rest of the party too. Next up at level 6, we get Decisive Edict, which allows us, whenever we cast a spell that does use one of our packed magic spell slots, to erupt in this profane energy in a 30-foot emanation originating from us. Then for each creature within that range, we choose whether they get advantage on all attack rolls until the end of their next turn, or force them to make a wisdom saving throw, failing which they become frightened. We can do this once per short rest, or when we use Magical Cunning, it also restores. Now, a few notes on this. Firstly, it requires not just a spell slot, but a packed magic spell slot. This means that if you did multiclass and obtain the spellcasting feature from another class, you cannot use Decisive Edict with it. Secondly, it also obviously does not work with cantrips, and it also does not work with any leveled spellcasting that is free, which includes Voice of Tyranny and Command. To reiterate, we do not get this benefit when we cast Command for free from Voice of Tyranny. Though if we did burn a packed magic spell slot to cast Command, it absolutely would work. And finally, it very specifically says, for each creature in the emanation, choose one of the following effects, which means that it doesn't matter if allies are within range, we aren't forced to require them to make a saving throw against being frightened. We can opt to use Martial on our allies and Oppress on our enemies all at the same time, even if they're all within the same emanation, which makes this feature just so flexible and strong. By the way though, the Oppress feature on Decisive Edict is the one that was extremely similar to Barbarian's Intimidating Presence, but whatever though, we're not talking about that. This feature has the potential to be very strong. You can give the benefit of advantage to all of your allies provided you're close enough, and more importantly, it's for every attack they make until their end of their next turn. So a fighter with extra attack can utilize it on all of their attacks. And if they get a chance to make an opportunity attack before their turn, they can get the benefit then too. Plus, stack that with creatures being frightened and having disadvantage on most of their rolls, it can just create such a monstrous swing. The really nice thing about this feature is that it's incidental. What I mean by that is that it's not something you really need to go out of your way to do, and you're also not likely to cast a spell just to get the benefit of Decisive Edict outside of a few probably rare circumstances. With it, you're just going to be casting a spell anyway, and now, as a perk to doing something that you were already going to do, you get to massively buff some allies and debuff some enemies. It's very good. How often you get to use it is a slightly different question though. The fact that it does refresh with Magical Cunning is a big deal that will give you at least 2 uses of it spread across separate encounters if you don't short rest. But also, a lot of parties with Warlocks do tend to short rest more frequently. I think the fact that it is tightly limited is probably a good thing though, considering how powerful of a turn it can enable. Dropping this at the start of an encounter is sure to be a strong move. Next up at level 10, we get Vindictive Rebuke. This lets us, when an enemy hits us with an attack roll, to use our reaction to force them to reroll their d20 and they must use the new roll. And if the reroll turns the attack into a miss, the enemy then takes psychic damage equal to our warlock level, and we can do this a number of times equal to our charisma modifier per long rest. It's very nice that the damage does scale too, beginning at 10 and going to 20 at max. It is worth noting though that while you do get to see the result of the initial roll, it's still not disadvantaged, they just have to use the new rolls. So the attack could definitely still hit, or worse, they could even end up critting, which is definitely gonna suck. There's a few other abilities in the game that do similar things to benefit players, like Zealot Barbarian's Fanatical Focus, which lets you reroll failed saving throws with a bonus equal to your rage bonus. Or Counter Charm, which lets someone reroll a failed save against being frightened or charmed, but gives advantage on the reroll. I know these aren't identical, but rather these are just features that enable a reroll and provide some kind of bonus at the same time. Since Vindictive Rebuke doesn't do any of that, like even give disadvantage, you could end up sinking your reaction and a use of the feature into doing absolutely nothing and not even getting a slightly increased chance at success here. It's not necessarily a bad thing though, it's probably just going to make you think about when you want to use it. I wonder if they might change it to being half damage even if they still hit, and then if they miss, it'll be full damage. I'm not sure, it's just a thought. I still think it's a good mix of a defensive and offensive feature that provides some additional value for a reaction. Let me know what you think though. And finally, at level 14, we get our capstone, Absolute Tyranny. This makes it so that when we cast command, we can target one additional creature with it. So if we're using our free cast, it's functionally cast at level 2, but it's worth noting that it will continue to scale with your spell slot level and just continue to add one additional creature to wherever you're at. And if a creature is frightened by us, they automatically fail their save against command. This is very cool, and is especially nice to see the internal synergy between Decisive Edict and Absolute Tyranny. You can even do it on the same turn. You can cast a spell, potentially frighten the target, and then cast command on them, which they automatically fail against if they're frightened, since command is now a bonus action for us. This is really good, and I love the implementation here. One thing to note is that it's not just that they have the frightened condition in general that makes them automatically fail. We have to have frightened them. Though that could be through Decisive Edict or some other means. Regardless of how we do it, the point is that it can't come from another party member or some other source. It's also worth mentioning that it specifically says that it works with any command spell that we cast and is not restricted to the use of pact magic slots, so this does also benefit from Voice of Tyranny. I really like this capstone. Not only is it strong in its own right, but it also has fantastic synergy with other subclass features. It feels well thought out and well executed. Overall, I'm a huge fan of the Sorcerer-King Patron subclass. I think there's a lot of fun to be had with it. It's clearly designed as a support and does an excellent job at that. It certainly gets some offensive spells on its list, but Warlocks are often hesitant to be burning through spell slots given the chance to avoid it, hence all the Eldritch Blast memes. And fortunately, you can still totally do that with this subclass without getting in the way. Let me know your thoughts about the Sorcerer-King Warlock. Thank you so much to all of my patrons, you guys rock. Check out some of my other D&D videos, but otherwise, take care.